Right now, I'm okay. But I just came in from outside and the wind is blowing.
Ready?
Ready.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello. You are tuned in to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady Rochelle, where we move away from awareness towards action. It is Testimonial Monday, and I'm so excited. We have an exciting show for you today. We're going to be talking about See the Light. There are so many ways that you can tune into the show. Go to intellectualradio.com. You can go over to YouTube, type in Intellectual Radio. And don't forget to follow me, Lady Rochelle, on all forms of social media by typing in @Warriors Talk with the number 1. The show is being sponsored by Allstate with Paula Kelly, located at 327 East Glenwood Lansing Road in Glenwood. Let me catch my breath. In Glenwood at 708-758-3300. And Paula Kelly is specializing in all of your insurance needs. Like I said, we have a special show today. It's going to touch on suicide. So it's a very sensitive show, but it's a life-saving show. So my guest that I have today, I'm really excited because so many great things are happening for her right now. And I know she's trying to catch her breath because yesterday they had a viewing on the south side of Chicago, and I'm dying to see how that went. My guest today is Aretha Tatum. She is a minister with Free Life-Changing Ministries, and a director of Courage Over Fear Productions, which is a facet of the Free Life Ministries. She is also an award-winning author and filmmaker. Her goal is to create films that ignite faith, and her joy is her superpower. And her motto in life is life over purpose. And so I'm excited to bring her in, and she's also going to have one of her other castmates here today, which is Leland Standford, who is one of the cast members in the show. So what I want to do first is for you to just explain what See the Light is all about.
Oh, wonderful. I am so happy and excited to be here. So thank you for having me. See the Light is a short film that deals with the subject of suicide. And what we find is you can get the statistics for the amount of people who died as a result of suicide, but you will never, ever know how many almost died, but God. So it is a short faith-based film that the message is God loves, God saves, God cares.
Ooh, wow, I like that. We all know if you are a believer in God, this show is faith-based, so we do promote God all day, and that's the only way that you're going to make it is by having God on your side. So I'm excited because I did get to see it live in person at the theater when you did it. Was it in October?
No, it was.
How long was that?
Well, we had a few screenings, so
Okay.
we had the
at the theater.
premiere in April.
Okay,
And
I
then
think
it
I
was
went to
also,
that one.
yes, in
I went to
April.
that one. Okay. I went and I took my children with me, and
Yes.
they liked it. They was excited about it. And then I found out that my 12-year-old had one of her classmates were actually cutting herself.
Wow.
So, and then I had a conversation with them. So it does open up conversation for people who may not even think about suicide or think it's an issue.
Right, exactly. And what we have transitioned from just showing the film to actually having the film screening along with a panel discussion, which is what we did yesterday, where I would bring in a licensed clinical social worker, a grief and loss certified coach, a life coach, and people who have expertise in dealing with mental health and depression, so that after the film we can open up the conversation so that we can talk about it. And the one we had yesterday, which was phenomenal, was the main issue is parents are concerned about their children. How do we talk to them? How do we find out what's going on with them? So it's always amazing to see the audience open up and the secrets. We want to get the secrets out. And the other main point of the film is the emphasis on therapy, because even though they were divinely, inspired to not take their own lives, it takes place in a therapy session. So we want to bring out and emphasize that it's okay, even though God kept you from, committing suicide, but you still need to make the steps to get help, to talk about it, to deal with the issues that got you to that point in the first place.
So even though they saw the light, Now there's work to be done after that, because you really can't leave somebody alone after that happens and say, okay, girl, I'm glad you didn't take your life, and then you go home and she go home and you think everything is going to be okay. So.
No, it's not. The enemy is busy. So if there's a crack, that crack, unless it's totally sealed, that crack is going to be a problem later on down the line. So yes, we want to take the stigma out of going to therapy. And one of the amazing things was a woman that was at the original screening. Unfortunately, her son hung himself.
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
She was there yesterday at the screening, and she just gave a praise report to say that now she's taken, the steps to get help, to seek help. And because of that, they brought to her attention that we need more African Americans to, consider coming to therapy as well, because the reality is we tend to not do it because we think, I know old school, they used to say, I'm not crazy. You don't have to be crazy.
Why is going to a counselor associated with somebody being crazy? I mean, you have to have an outlet in order to get that, to get it out. If you don't, then that's where suicide happens.
Yeah, it builds up or whatever, is going on in their mind. And I was actually talking to my pastor today. We were talking about that. And she was talking about the number of pastors that have done that and committed suicide. So you're talking about somebody supposedly having faith, and then they can't take it. And she was saying, well, what made it so bad? And then I was telling her sometimes it may not be that it's that bad, in the sense that there are other people who are dealing with worse, but you may just decide, I don't want to deal with it anymore.
That's true.
Whatever I'm dealing with anymore.
Yeah.
So it was amazing to see, to get people to open up. And we were talking about another issue that came up was relationships. One gentleman in the office, in the audience, said he had a friend who had a bad breakup and ended up taking a gun and blowing his, as they say, blowing his brains out.
Wow.
But as a result of a bad breakup. So we touched on that as well, because sometimes relationships can get you, take you to that dark space when it doesn't work out and you don't see yourself, getting past being with that person.
That's true. I always look at relationship like a death. It's like you losing somebody. You lost that person, but yet you got to see them all the time.
Oh, yeah.
They may be with somebody else.
Yeah.
They're not with you, and you still got these unresolved feelings while you're grieving.
Yes.
And you need to get help for that too. I think a lot of times we just think, oh, I'm invincible. I can do this on my own, or they don't really know how serious it is when you're having all of these thoughts and you try to push them in the back of your mind, and then you end up hurting yourself or maybe even other people.
Yeah. And the other thing which is interesting, when you think of a warrior, as I said, because you asked me that question, I said battle ready.
Yeah.
But what that means is whatever it takes to face the battle. If that means you need to go talk to somebody, then you go talk to somebody. And that can help you with the fight that you're in. So people think that being a warrior always means I'm the strongest. But it doesn't mean you're the strongest, but you're using wisdom in the fight. And sometimes that means I need to go talk to somebody.
Yes.
I need help. I need to deal with this now before it gets worse.
I like that. I often think about my son because he's in the army when it comes to a warrior, because he told this story about having a battle buddy. Mm-hmm. And like if that battle buddy, if he gets hurt, then you're responsible for him. You got to patch him up. You got to drag him off the battlefield. You got to take him with you. You can't leave his body out there. So it's all about being battle ready. You got to be ready for anything that's going to happen and be able to tackle it. Yeah. So that you can be alive to tell your story.
Oh, that's the end game, is to fulfill your purpose. Yeah. Live on purpose is my motto, and you want to fulfill that purpose. And in order to do that, you have to equip yourself for the battle. Yes. To be battle ready. And sometimes people think that it always means you have to do. Sometimes it means just being still. Mm-hmm. Being still so you can recharge, re-energize, and
hear from God. I'm sorry, and hear from God, because sometimes you're doing stuff that may not be in His will, or may not be giving Him glory, and so you think you're doing stuff and it's empty.
Well, as they say, every good idea isn't a God idea. So you thinking you may be doing something that's great, but it isn't God's plan or will for your life at this season. That's another thing. There's a time and a season for everything too. It may be something that you're to do, but maybe not right now. So don't rush the process. There's a process. You have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because there's going to be consequences if you go 1, 5, 9, because you're going to miss some of the foundation that you need to have to get where you're trying to go. So a lot of times in the film See the Light, each one of the main characters dealt with different tragedies. You know, some were beyond their control, like the one that ended up with the gunshot. His family got shot in a drive-by. That's beyond your control. The other one were mistakes. One was drinking and driving and ended up killing his girlfriend because he ran into a pole. Now that was something, that guilt is heavier on the person because they actually, could have made a choice that was better, and it would have ended up in a different result. So a lot of times you have to learn how, during the mistakes that we make, to forgive yourself too. So some of the people end up on the edge because they don't know how to forgive themselves for what they've done.
Wow. If you are just tuned in, this is Warriors Talk with Later Show live on Intellectual Radio. And we're talking to, what's the name that you use on Instagram?
Miss
Respect Tatum. And she's talking about the short film that she produced, she wrote, directed, and she's talking about See the Light. And we're talking about pulling the cover off of suicide and why is it so important to get help and to let you know that you are not alone. So you can call in if you have any questions or if you have any comments for her at 708-223-8953. And I wanted to talk about the different characters in the film. Like, how did you end up picking these characters? Like, did you have like a team? What was the process? I know it was strategic.
Oh, it was all God. It was really all God. See the Light is the second film that I was able to produce, and I had no clue that I was actually going to start doing this, and I did it by faith. I started with writing books because I'm an author as well, and I said, okay, I can do this because the Lord said, I will help you with it with my first book. And I was thinking, I'm not an author, but okay, you're going to help me, Lord, so I did it. And that ended up transitioning into writing screenplays. And it was amazing how the Holy Spirit gave me, it was around this time last year, where I was at work, and all of a sudden, I think it was that morning, I was eating breakfast, and it downloaded. See the light. Oh, this is that time of the year. You were coming up on the holidays. A lot of people deal with depression. I said, okay, Lord. And it reminded me that no matter what's going on, don't think that God isn't aware of current things that are happening. And when he gave me that, it reminded me like, okay, Lord, you do see that this has been on the rise. You are aware of what's happening, but he wanted to emphasize, you have no clue how many people I've kept from doing this. So they were able to, quote unquote, see the light. And so that's what started the whole process, was the fact that I believe that the Lord gave that to me to remind people that, one, it's important. If you have an issue, seek help. And two, you don't always have to believe everything you hear on the news, because they're not going to report all the victories and all the praise reports that God has kept people. So what has been amazing with this journey is, since we started it, we started posting the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number, and you never know who it might help. And then at the same time, I've been meeting people who have been coming up to me and said, I'm one of those people.
Wow.
I'm one of those people. When I was in college, when I was whatever, I thought about killing myself, or I attempted to kill myself. And I've been meeting the people who God wanted me to emphasize that I've saved a lot of people from actually getting to that point.
Wow, you never know. I received a phone call from one of my friends yesterday. Her mom died a couple years ago, and she took it really hard, and she had to just pull away because she said she was losing herself. She was like, I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, and she didn't feel like herself. She said I had to go get help, because she's like, I couldn't show up for myself or anybody else. And she called me yesterday, and she was like, I'm sorry, I've been absent, but I had to take care of myself first. And I'm like, I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather you self-care first and you be here, than to do something tragic. So, we have to pay attention to people too. Talk to people. You just never know what may be on their mind. you just never know what somebody may be going through, even with like a cancer diagnosis, what
Yes.
people are going through.
Yes.
You just never know what people are thinking, and that's why help is important. And I think that seeing a psychologist should be part of the treatment regimen when you're going through any type of illness.
Oh yes, definitely.
You have to process it.
Yes, because and you need that to reinforce your confidence in I can do this, because unfortunately there are people who say the wrong things, and bless their hearts, they don't realize that you actually are not speaking life over me. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. And it's like, oh wow. I had one person who told me that once she received a diagnosis, she had someone told her that God was punishing her. What'd you do wrong? I couldn't believe that someone let that come out of their mouth. What did you do wrong? Because God must be punishing
Right.
you. That's why you ended up being diagnosed with cancer. So that's hurtful. That's very destructive. You don't want, so you always have to make sure you arm yourself. Armed and dangerous
Yes.
is something I always say, to get around those who are going to help you and not drag you down or pull you further into whatever you're dealing with. So yeah, you have to really, really guard what you hear, what you see. That's just in general. You definitely have to do that.
And the people that you surround yourself with, you want some caring, supportive people that's going to be around you. What we're going to do right now is we are talking to Miss Respect Tatum, and she's talking about See the Light. And we have one of the cast members here is going to be telling his story. He's played Jacob.
Yes.
And so I'm interested to see what Jacob's story is about, and I know that you are. So just bear with us for one moment. We'll be right back.
All right.
You can come this way. It's easier.
Yeah.
Let me see if it's any questions or anything.
I made it.
Hey, Razan.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I work with somebody with that name, and I would get it all the time. That's okay.
That's funny. And I heard, and it's so funny because I called you maybe before I realized it.
People do it all the time. I get Aretha, Anita.
Ready?
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2.
And we are back. This is Lady Rochelle with Warriors Talk here on Intellectual Radio, and we're sitting here with the writer and the director of See the Light, Aretha.
Aretha.
Why did I say Aretha? And I just talked to you about it. Aretha, Miss
Yeah.
Respect Tatum.
There you
I know
go.
that part.
Yeah.
Miss Respect Tatum, and she is talking about suicide. We have another cast member here who played the role of Jacob, and his name is Leland Standford.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. I made it.
You made it.
I did.
Thank you for making it.
Of course.
So we're talking about See the Light.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you become a part of this amazing cast?
Okay, it started with Blind Bartimaeus in our first movie.
He was in the first one.
Oh,
So it was mainly like a voiceover to where it, told the story of Blind Bartimaeus. And she asked me, did I want to be a part of See the Light? And I was like, of course, however I can help. And then last minute, she was like, could you do Jacob? Yes, and then I began my research.
so tell us a little bit about Jacob, because I want them to actually see it.
Okay, so Jacob is a middle-aged man, newly married, and he had a son, and they didn't make it due to drive-by violence, and it shares his story of what he had to go through during the time.
So what did you do to prepare for this particular role?
Mainly create a backstory for the character. How would he react in that situation, given the variables, which is, being newly married and losing a child to drive-by violence. That and pretty much just centering myself in the character to allow whatever spirit to flow through me when action is called. That's me as an actor.
I'm excited because this particular subject, as I was doing the research just on suicide alone, and it was saying that 123 people commit suicide every day, and that men are 3 times more likely to commit suicide. And then they talked about children too. We, and we look at kids and we think they don't have a lot of things to worry about. We're feeding them, we're clothing them, they have a place to stay. Like, what could they be worried about? But you just never know what may be going on in somebody else's mind. And so that's why this topic is very needed. It's life-saving, so that we can get people to talking about, as Miss Respect talked about, getting help and not being afraid to get help and not feel shame because you're going to get help. And so what would you say would be one of the takeaways from this movie? If you wanted somebody to go see it, how would you sum it up?
I would say you always have support, regardless if that's immediate family members or just a complete stranger, just to open up and share your heart. It's pivotal for a person of faith base to have a foundation in God, because if you lean not to your own understanding and always acknowledge Him, He'll direct your path. It's like there's no other way to put it. So I feel like that, and not being afraid to open up and share, regardless of the time, place, person, because you need help, so you have to speak.
You do. And I think as individuals, we need to make time. And the world is so busy, even with family. Christmas is coming up, and it's like you just have to make time to sit down and talk to people and say, what's going on? And look them in their eye, like, I need to see your face. I need to see what's going on, because you just never know what somebody may be going through. And just to having a conversation with them, it may spark something to get them to open up. Because they may be screaming for help in some type of way. You just never know.
Yeah, you never know. But one thing I want to share a little bit of my testimony is, and I realized, okay, Lord, that's another reason why you gave me this project, is when I was a senior in college, my mom actually tried to kill herself. And the thing that stood out, which I want people to be aware of, is the fact that the day that she made the attempt, we had fun. We went out, we went shopping, we were laughing. It wasn't just an ordinary day. It was a great day. And we got back to the house. I went out somewhere. My youngest brother came home and found her. She had wrote a note, I can't take it anymore. And she had taken some pills. He called 911. So I ended up, they had her in the hospital and she was on suicide watch. So somebody had to stay in the room with her. And so I was the one that stayed, and she started making small talk about my college graduation. And I remember being so angry with her, and I'm thinking, why are you talking about graduation? Because you weren't planning on being here for that. But since we've been working on See the Light, I've been talking to the therapist about this whole subject matter, and one brought out a very important point. She said that the reason that the therapist said the reason she was so excited and happy that day was the fact that 9 times out of 10 she had already made up her mind that she was done. So sometimes she said that they feel a sense of peace because they know that they're about to end everything. And so that's why, I was so surprised, because she was happy that day, but the therapist was saying that was probably because she had already made up her mind, and she knew that once this is over, I'm done. And that is what will throw people, is because it's not necessarily they are walking around. Now, before that, she may have had those moments where she was really, struggling. And it's like, what's wrong? But I didn't notice that. And so you may catch the person on the day when they're actually seem okay, and just the other, yesterday, the lady who found her son, she said that right before that, he was encouraging a family member on the phone. She heard him giving him some positive encouragement, and then all of a sudden he goes in the closet and hangs himself. So I just want also people to know that, still check to see, even the ones that appear to be happy may still, be masking something that's a deeper pain, that they are just, not going to let you know what's going on.
So try to go beneath the surface, dig a little deeper. When you spend time around them, sometimes if they're acting out of character.
Yeah.
You kind of like pick up little stuff, and sometimes people can mask really well, and you sit back and you be like, wow, now I see it now. But when you read up on it, sometimes you don't. Like you spent that day with your mom, you was just excited and having fun. You know.
Yeah. I had no clue what was was gonna happen later that night. Never. And then I guess what really threw me is her note saying I can't take it anymore. And I'm thinking, what was it that you could? Was it us? You know, was it? What was it that you got to the point where you couldn't take it anymore? So that just letting people know that sometimes it can throw you where you don't even see it coming. There are other times where, you know, the people will give you a lot of indications that something's really wrong, and you just ignore. You'll be all right. Don't do that. Make sure, you know, help them to be all right by saying, hey, do you need to talk to someone? You know, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline to talk to someone. You might not be all the way on the edge, but you can still call them and talk.
And nobody will know that you called them, so you don't have to worry about that. I think some people feel like it's hopeless. Like, I can't, like, their problem is so big. You know how sometimes you hear somebody else's problem, you're like, oh, girl, my problem is small compared to what she's going through.
Right.
You know, some people get in that spot that they cannot get out of, and they think that this is it. You know, nothing is going to change for me, and they feel like, I'm done. I'm done. And then they feel like, I don't know, I've always wondered, do they think about the people behind? Like, I tell my kids, like, it would be selfish for me to commit suicide, because who's going to take care of y'all? Like, where y'all going to go? And I didn't want them to have that, you know, if somebody asks, oh, where's your mom? Oh, she committed. So it would always bring them back to that point. So, you know, I had to think about it, like, you know, no, that I can't do that, because it's a domino effect. People are going to be affected by it for a lifetime. For a lifetime. And so, thinking about this movie, See the Light, what surprised you when you were actually doing this?
What really surprised me is the number of people that admitted that I was one of the ones that God kept from killing themselves, because, you know, there's fellow authors and different people along the journey that I was so surprised to find out that was their story, that they said, oh, that was me. One person was saying her issue was her grandmother passed, and she didn't feel loved by her parents. She felt that only her grandmother really, really loved her and cared about her. So once her grandmother passed, she figured, I don't need to be here anymore because nobody else loves me. And she had parents, you know, who probably in their opinion, they were like, we love you, and then we thought we did pretty good. But she felt that it was only her grandmother that really, truly loved her. And she thought at that moment, she thought life wasn't worth living without her grandmother. So a lot of times people will attach themselves to a person, and then when that person is no longer there, then they figured that, okay, that's it, we're done. I remember as we were doing this project, and we've been raising awareness and promoting the Suicide Prevention Lifeline and so forth, and then I started to hear the stories of, one of the mass shootings that they had a year later. There were people who actually took their lives because they survived the mass shooting. And I don't know if they called it survivor's remorse or something like that, but they couldn't take the fact that the person that they were with or the person that was nearby them got killed, and they survived, and a year later they ended up taking their own life. I heard 2 incidents of that happening, and I had never heard of that before, but apparently that can happen too, where you go through something so traumatic, and then, you know, a year later you decide, I can't take it anymore, or why me, or it should have been me, or whatever they're thinking, that they actually end up doing that. So that surprised me too. I wouldn't have never thought that you could survive, you know, a tragedy such as that, and then think, I probably shouldn't be here, so I'm going to take myself out.
I could totally identify with that, because my dad passed away from lung cancer. So I was diagnosed first, but then he was diagnosed a couple of years after me, but he died within 6 months. Oh, wow. So I felt that survivor's remorse, like, why am I still here? You know, why does God still have me here? And to take him so fast, you know. So I could totally understand with that survivor's remorse, like what that feels like, to be wondering why you're still here. What's the point of you being here? And they're not. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. And again, we are on Intellectual Radio. This is Warriors Talk, and we're talking to the cast of See the Light. And we have Aretha, Miss Respect Tatum. And we have, let me make sure I get his name right, Leland Standford,
Right. Yes.
and he played the role of Jacob. So we will be right back, and when we come back, we're gonna ask them, did they have any challenges making this film? All right, so we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
All right.
Let me see if there's any questions or anything. Sometimes they be acting shy, like they don't want to do no questions.
Of course, I told you.
Okay, can you please like and share this video for me? Okay.
Then when I like coming straight, the damn line, there wasn't much traffic. Once I get this
I
way,
knew it. I told you. I said he's gonna be fine on the damn ride. And then once he switched to Eisenhower, that's gonna be the issue. Cause
So,
you went right in traffic.
Waze took me straight down Jackson to left on Austin and then get back on the highway.
Do
Yeah,
you
so
like
it's safe.
Waze?
I do, especially for the big city. Now, if you're in a more rural area, I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, just do like Google Maps or
Because
something.
I hear people talking about Waze is much easier.
Yeah, for the big city, because it knows the side roads. Because if you're waiting at a light and you know you can take this one way to, go down, make a right, and a left to get to where you're going, it's best to do it. If you're a good driver, I do recommend that.
The
It's
Waze.
Waze, yes.
If you're a good driver.
Because you have to react fast
Oh.
to it. Because it'll update you, like make a left
Really fast.
really fast before you get to where it'll cause traffic.
Oh.
Yeah, so you just you have to be aware of your surroundings.
Oh wow.
But it's still a
Good
great
for
app.
me then. I don't know if that's good.
Mainly when it's traffic. That's when it does it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It'll save you time by rerouting.
Reroute, you're right. It's like, okay, we know it's gonna slow up over here, turn,
Mhm.
go around this way. Oh, that's cool.
I was gonna try to retwist my hair a little bit before this, but I couldn't. I was demoing the front wall by the windows and insulated it before. That was my goal, finish insulation before it was my time.
To leave. Oh, okay. Wow.
It's my second time. The first was for it was another Christian.
For what project? Or just as an actor?
Black versus it was a theater play that we did at Gorilla Tango Theater. Off of Milwaukee.
It's up north.
It's up north, yeah. Well, northwest kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but that was interesting.
I'll get used to it.
I know.
When is the next
I was just thinking about doing something maybe late March because we want to partner with some youth groups and get some. We need to get some of these young people in there because with the therapists and everybody, because the parents were talking about their kids, so we need to get the kids. Yeah, need to reach down because
It's
they
never, you always have an option. And people, it's because the devil he's raw at his job. And he's supposed to attack your mind. And if you try to handle it yourself, you're going to lose. That's why God say, put it on the altar.
You
Bro, I
gotta
got
fit that for the
it.
end. You were talking about all this.
Oh, yeah, I will.
just like say it,
But I don't like to be too forceful, with my belief in God, because a lot of people are.
Everybody else is forceful with the way they live it. They'll shove it down your throat.
They will.
Yes. They strong arm you.
Uh-oh.
They think you're supposed to be this way.
Call me stupid.
Why
Call me
so why
with
we
my
gotta
book.
be so passive when it comes to believing?
Because I be in church, I be letting people have it.
Yeah, like something wrong with us because we believe that way.
It's not true.
Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2.
And we are back. This is Lady Rochelle here with Warriors Talk on Intellectual Radio. And we are talking about See the Light with Aretha, Miss Respect Tatum. And we have Leland Standford. And they are talking about suicide, which is a sensitive subject, but we know that it's one that needs to be talked about, and we need to pull the cover off of it. Before we go back into our subject, the second half of the show is actually being sponsored by Emmanuel Church of God in Christ, located at 3058 West Van Buren in Chicago, with Michael Richardson. And at Emmanuel, we are building upon a solid foundation. Now, when we left, we talked about, the question that I had was, were there any challenges during this film?
Ooh, one challenge, which was a learning experience, is shooting in January in Chicago. Oh my goodness, I will probably not do that again. That I wasn't thinking about it. I was just by faith, let's do this. So we actually shot in January of this year. And we dodged some snowstorms and cold, and but we were able to get it done, thank God. But that was an issue with dealing with the weather and praying, Lord, let it be okay by Saturday when we need to shoot. Right. Because we had one cast member, bless his heart, who came, what it was, a 2-hour drive. He came near Bloomington. He lived near Bloomington and would drive up. So we had just had a big storm, so it was a lot of snow on the ground. He came in this big truck because he couldn't drive his car because the highway was bad. So it's a reason why you see a lot of productions in LA or Atlanta in the warmer climates, because typically during January or February in Chicago, it's really challenging to try to shoot. You definitely don't want to do any outdoor scenes, right. And it can be challenging with the weather. So note to self: 9 times out of 10, I probably will never do another shoot in January again. Yeah, unless the Lord say no, do it and trust me. So yeah.
Wow. So you're thinking about going to California?
Oh no, not at the I'm not doing anything. Again, this was not even something I knew I would be doing. This is God led me to do this. He called me into ministry in 2010 at the age of 43. So just when you think when you think you know which way your life is going to go, God will surprise you. And so that was a life-changing experience for me. And then as I went, and as you go, God will reveal things to you. And he began to reveal to me that media, arts, and entertainment is the area he's going to use me in to minister in. And initially I thought, so I started going to, film premieres and film festivals and workshops and seminars and meeting actors and of course when you meet actors that are believers, I was right there, and I love to encourage them and say, you don't have to sell your soul to be in this industry. Right. You can keep your faith and then have the faith to know that you can make it, and don't give up, and God will open a door. So I'm thinking, okay, good, I'll minister to actors and people who are filmmakers and so forth. And then as I went, the Lord revealed to me, no, I want you to minister to them, but I'm going to use you to create content that's going to give me glory. And I said, oh, okay. All right. So it's amazing as you start to live on purpose and walk in purpose. God won't overwhelm you. He's with you. So he's going to step by step. I have you do this, and I have you do that. And so the first film was Through His Eyes, the Inside of Bartimaeus, and it was about blind Bartimaeus on the day he encountered Jesus. And to get me started, God gave me that, and it's all from a blind man's perspective, so it was all audio. So that made it easy to produce, because only at the end, when his eyes were open, do you just see a glimpse of what was going on outside. So that, when the Lord gave me that, I said, okay, Lord, you really want me to start making films, because you can't get any easier than that. But it still had a powerful message, and it's 5 minutes and 13 seconds long, but the impact, and people got it, that we walk by faith, not by sight.
And Leland was the one who starred in this particular short film.
Yes, Leland was.
I was in it. I didn't star, but I was in it. I was the heckler.
You was the heckler. Wow.
Heckler, yeah.
So while we were on break, Leland was saying some powerful words about having the devil in your ear and how you should equip yourself. So I just want you to just go back into that.
Go back to it. So essentially what I was saying is, people don't give the devil enough credit, because he's a master and he has dominion over this world, and he attacks our mind. That's his job, is to go straight for the brain, because if the brain is discombobulated, then you don't have a connection with God, and you are susceptible to whatever he does, which is steal, kill, and destroy. So essentially keep keep your mind stayed on God. Whenever you're going through anything, you're supposed to give that to the altar. You gotta let it go, because it's not your war, it's God's war, and He's good at what He does too. So go ahead, let Him handle it real quick, because He'll do it in ways you wouldn't even think. And revenge is His. So I don't have to do much after that.
I think we stress ourselves out too much trying to handle
do.
stuff that we should let Him handle.
Mm-hmm.
And then He steps right after we done been through all this crazy stuff we done. Then He come in and be like, bam, it's done. You be like, wow, that could have been like that at first.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't, like you said, we don't sit still.
Yeah.
We don't take time to sit still to figure out what it is. What do you want, Leland, for anybody to get from this movie?
There is a scared child in all of us, and it is our responsibility to intercede for them. You know, it's okay to pray for yourself, you know, and be like, God, I need help. I'm struggling mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, whatever it may be, to just pray for yourself, you know, and don't forget about your inner child, because we all have a lot of childhood trauma or some childhood trauma. So it's best to intercede for yourself to combat whatever can happen to you. And suicide is one of them.
And suicide is real.
No,
Mhm.
it's
very
real. It's real. But again, you know, there's so many different things that are going on. There are people who are dealing with disease, you know, diseases, and dealing with the loss of a loved one. Because my youngest brother, the one who actually found my mom, 4 years later, he was killed in a drive-by. So, you know, here today, gone tomorrow. So, you know, just dealing with that. And I remember hearing my dad say he was 11 years older than my mom, and they were married 39 years. And he said that because I was older than her, I would have never thought that I would have lost my wife and my youngest son. And that both of them would go before me, you know.
Mm.
And so I was like, that, I never thought about that. But he said that really hit him, because he would have never thought that that's how his journey would have went. So that's the other thing that we have to realize, is that it is a journey, which means it's ongoing, and it's not over until God says it's over. And it sounds cliche, but it really is the truth.
Mhm.
It's not over until God says it's over. And for people, and I love to talk to people who are more experienced, I'll say this. Sometimes we keep acting like we brand new with this. It's the same thing. If He's gotten you through victories before, what do you think has changed? Yes, you know, we sometimes get and act as if we've forgotten, you know, what God has done before, and all of a sudden this is the worst thing ever. And it's like, but you said that, like, that issue 2 years ago, that was the worst thing ever. So know that it's a journey. And as you go on this journey, there's going to be hills, there's going to be valleys, there's going to be hills. That is like play, move forward, repeat. It's going to keep happening. But what should happen is, as we continuously go through that, is the way we look at it should start to change. Because the hills and valleys are not going to change. But the way we look at the hills and the valleys should change, and say, okay, well, I got through that. God brought me through it. He's with me now. Let's see what you got for me now, Lord. Because when you realize He can do anything, right? I think sometimes we forgot, and we keep putting Him and bringing Him down to our level. Oh, that's impossible. But okay, for you, it is.
For man.
Yeah,
Right.
for man, it is impossible. It's impossible,
Yeah.
but not with God. With God, all things are possible. And we actually have to really realize what the scriptures are saying and receive what they're saying, because it's written in there what He can do, what He will do, what you should do regarding, you know, the issues that you have. And in this chaos that's in the world that we're in, we need to go back to the basics. What's the basics? Trust God.
Mhm.
Follow His lead. Follow His word. Pull back from it. If you need to detox from the news, please detox from it.
I highly recommend it.
Because after a while, you know, it's gonna come into your spirit, because you keep seeing this. They're not gonna report. They'll give you one good feel-good story, and the rest is gonna be horrible. And sometimes, if you're not if you're dealing with something, you don't need to hear all that at the time.
I totally agree. We are live on Intellectual Radio, and we're talking to the cast of See the Light. And I wanted to know, were there any myths that came along with suicide that you thought about or that you ran across?
Oh, I know one for sure is that I thought, and they said it was a myth when I was doing the research, that it's the holidays that's the worst, and it's not true. They said it actually spikes up in the spring.
That's true.
And it's actually worse
That's true.
during the spring because I guess, during the holidays, during the winter months, in general, you kind of expect to be kind of alone, outside of, the actual holiday when you want to be around family. But they said when the weather breaks and people are coming outside and, doing things, then it tends to affect people. And they said that spike goes up during that time.
Because you have nothing to go outside for.
And it hits.
You feel you have nothing to go
Right.
outside
Yeah, you
for.
feel you.
But you woke up, so you got
Yes.
plenty to go outside for.
So yeah, that's one of the biggest myths that I ran across was that the holidays are the worst, and it's not necessarily true. And the other thing, I saw that women tend to do it, make the attempt more often. More often women make the attempt, but men are more successful.
That's true.
Because men tend to pick harsher ways of doing it. They,
You
unfortunately,
go out, you
yeah,
pick
you
a
know,
way that's
they
gonna
mean
work
business
and you don't
and
get
like-
hurt.
yeah, so
Yeah.
they're more,
Yeah.
unfortunately, they're more
Right.
successful because they will pick a harsher method, like a gun or jump off something or whatever, where, in general, I'll say women will use pills or maybe, try to cut their wrist or whatever. And actually one of our, the cast members, she mentioned that at our screening that she actually tried to cut her wrist before. And so she's survived. She's one of the people that God kept to tell her story. So it's amazing how this journey has been when you start to open up and talk about it. So it's and then with any subject, as you get into it, you start to find out what's really true and what's not. And even with the Bible, you find out certain popular sayings that isn't even in the Bible. It's not even in the Bible. It's like, that's not in there. It's like, wait a minute, we've been saying this for years. It's like, yeah, but it's not in the, it's a nice saying, but it's not in the Bible. So yeah.
Wow.
What about you?
What about
What
you?
myths have you come across any?
Not really, not that I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was interested to know about the men's success rate though.
Yeah,
I didn't think about
That really shocked me too. But when you think about it, it makes sense because men are logic. Women are more emotional, so
Yeah.
we would do something
We
that
trying
was
to
slower.
slower,
we like, I'm gonna
ease
shoot
into
myself.
it.
That's gonna be blood.
And we're not making light of it, but that's what we did.
Yeah.
It is.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. So tell us what's coming up for you.
Ooh, I actually, as a result of yesterday's screening and panel discussion, with the concern of a lot of the parents, I want to do another screening with a panel discussion with some trained professionals and partner with some youth groups this time and try to bring in some of the young people because they really deal with bullying and then other things that are going on, image issues, with the social media and all that, so a lot of them are hiding secrets, that they may not want to tell their parents, but if we give them a safe place and space and have some professionals there that can actually talk to them, I would love to try to do something like that in the spring of 2020, if the Lord says the same. But that just came on my heart yesterday after the parents who are generally concerned about their children, and some of them that have children that are cutting themselves, and I'm hearing that's something that's going
really
around.
big.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
So so let's get them involved and talk to them because, and again, the other thing that one of the therapists brought out yesterday was that it's for adults who are dealing with this struggle. A lot of it does go back to the childhood again. So if you were never healed, delivered, or whatever from the scars of your childhood, you carry that into adulthood, and you may get to the point where you just like, okay, I'm done. So it would be nice to now start getting the children, the younger kids, the teenagers, and start opening up for them to talk. And we need to really start emphasizing more identity and knowing who you are, and not being so concerned with how many people like my posts, or how many people, or the pictures that I'm posting. You know, I got to make sure I post all these cute pictures of me so that people can see that, I'm somebody. But to realize that you're somebody whether anybody else says it or not, because God didn't create any junk, as they said.
Exactly. What's next for you?
I am rehabbing a house. So that's the only thing on my agenda, just to complete my residence and do voiceover.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
Leland's also in my next film.
Oh yes.
I forgot about
That
that. We have we just wrapped on another film called Passed Over. And it actually is another current event because it deals with the power of prayer and is centered around a workplace shooting. So again, God has given me these projects to remind people that no matter what's going on in the world today, he sees, he knows, and he has given us the equipment. Prayer is powerful. We have to learn how to apply it in our everyday. You can be at a workplace and something's going on, or your boss is getting, acting funny. Go in the corner and pray for that person, because obviously they're going through something and they're under attack and they're fighting and lashing out. So okay, let me go pray for that person right quick.
Spiritual warfare.
Yeah. So the film itself is emphasizing the power of prayer when we're dealing with these unfortunate situations, which are happening way too often than it should. Somebody should be armed with prayer. God has given us angels to protect us. So, you have to open your mouth and say something. So I'm excited about seeing, and Leland's in that one. So it's always exciting when you meet actors that you like working with. And now I can see why you saw Spike Lee would have, Samuel Jackson, Denzel Washington, that he worked with on multiple films. It's because you kind of get a team, where you say, okay, let's do this, and you're used to working with each other. So I'm excited about Passed Over. So we're gonna again a movie with a message.
And how can I follow you?
Oh, I am at MissRespect1 on Instagram and Twitter. My YouTube channel is Missrespect Speaks, Aretha Tatum, and then on Facebook I'm Missrespect Speaks.
Awesome. How can you follow you?
I'm detoxing right now.
Okay.
Yeah. No social media for me.
Well, thank you so much for coming out and sharing this powerful message with listeners. I really appreciate it. Remember that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. So tune in next week. We're going to talk about seasonal depression with Doc Michelle. See you guys next week on Intellectual Radio at 6.
Bye.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Cool. That was cool. Thank you.
Yay. I've been in here before.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like I had my, while I was talking, like deja vu.
Oh,
Was
wow.
it
Yeah,
really?
it was so cool. I remember this part.
You guys, before you leave, let me get a picture real quick.
Oh, cool.
Hold on.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
have a simple show.
Okay.
Oh, right there.
Oh, picture here. Okay, cool.
I'm gonna get a picture. Just look at me. Roll it. Alright, thanks.
Cool.
Good show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we need a picture too. I need a picture. Y'all.
All right, bye, you guys.